The moment I saw that heart emoji next to the word harmless, I knew my marriage was already over. I just didn't know it yet. My name is Alan, and I'm a 38-year-old systems analyst for a tech company in Seattle. For 12 years, I thought I knew Linda better than anyone. We met in college during a particularly boring economics lecture, where we both showed up 20 minutes late. She sat next to me, borrowed a pen, and never gave it back. 3 months later, we were inseparable. We married young, built what I believed was an honest life together, bought our first house in the Greenwood neighborhood, and settled into a comfortable rhythm. She worked as a marketing director for a mid-sized pharmaceutical company downtown, and I'd always been proud of her ambition. Linda had worked her way up from a junior coordinator position, often staying late to perfect presentations, attending networking events on weekends. I respected her dedication. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our quiet Sunday mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles at the kitchen table while rain tapped against the windows. Our friends called us solid, stable, the couple that would make it. But looking back now, I realize I'd been seeing what I wanted to see, not what was actually there. The late nights at the office had increased over the past 6 months. The networking events became more frequent. She'd started going to the gym before work instead of after, something about needing a fresh start to the day. She'd bought new clothes, updated her hairstyle, started wearing perfume I didn't recognize on regular workdays. At the time, I'd convinced myself it was just her taking better care of herself, being more invested in her career. I was proud, actually. Never once did I consider that she might be taking care of herself for someone else. It started on a Thursday in late October. The Seattle rain was coming down in sheets, that heavy, relentless downpour that makes you question why anyone chooses to live in the Pacific Northwest. I was finishing up a debugging session at the office, surrounded by empty coffee cups and the blue glow of 3 monitors. My team was pushing to meet a deadline, and I'd been pulling long hours myself. The irony of that wouldn't hit me until later. My phone lit up around 6:47 p.m. Linda's text was casual, almost too casual. "I'm having a harmless dinner with my married boss. Don't worry, Redheart." I stared at that message for a solid 30 seconds, watching raindrops race down the window beside my desk. Something felt off immediately. Linda never put quotation marks around words like that, as if she was highlighting them, drawing attention to them. She never felt the need to reassure me about work dinners. She'd had plenty over the years with various colleagues. Team lunches, client dinners, after-work drinks to celebrate closing deals. I'd never questioned any of it, because she'd never given me a reason to. And she definitely never mentioned whether her colleagues were married or not. Why would that detail matter? Why would she need to specify that her boss was married, unless she was trying to preemptively defend against something? The heart emoji felt wrong too. Like she was trying too hard to make it seem casual and loving when the whole message screamed the opposite. I typed back, "Okay, where at?" I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Each second of that pause told me more than any words could. Just a place downtown. Work stuff. Be home by 9. No restaurant name. No specific location. No mention of which downtown area. Seattle's downtown stretched across several distinct neighborhoods. Linda always gave me details. If she was meeting someone for work, she'd typically say, heading to that Italian place near Pike Place, or meeting at the steakhouse by the convention center. She knew I liked to know where she was, not because I was controlling, but because we looked out for each other. If something happened, I should know where to find her. This vagueness was deliberate. She didn't want me to know where she was. I tried to focus on my code, but my mind kept circling back to that message. I read it 15, maybe 20 times, analyzing every word choice, every punctuation mark. The more I looked at it, the more wrong it felt. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Mark, a college buddy who worked as a real estate broker and spent most evenings showing properties around the downtown area. We'd been friends since freshman year, part of the same study group that had somehow survived beyond graduation. He was one of the groomsmen at our wedding. "Bro, isn't this your wife?" The photo he sent made my stomach turn. There was Linda, sitting in a booth at Canlis, one of the most expensive, most romantic restaurants in Seattle. The kind of place with a view of Lake Union, where reservations needed to be made weeks in advance, where the average dinner for 2 could easily hit $300. We'd talked about going there for our 10th anniversary, but decided it was too expensive. Too fancy for just a regular night out. Apparently, it wasn't too fancy for her boss. Across from her sat a man I recognized from the company photo she'd shown me months ago, Richard Novak, her boss. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair styled expensively, wearing what looked like a designer suit. His wedding ring was clearly visible, catching the light from the candles on their table. He was leaning across the table toward my wife with an expression that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or marketing strategies. But what really got me was Linda's face. She was laughing, that full, genuine laugh I used to be the only one to coax out of her. The kind where her eyes crinkled at the corners and her whole face lit up, where she'd throw her head back slightly and her shoulders would shake. I'd first fallen in love with that laugh during our second date, when I'd told a terrible joke about economists. I hadn't seen her laugh like that in at least 6 months. Maybe longer. When had we stopped making each other laugh? When had our conversations become just logistics and schedules and "how was your day?" without really listening to the answer? In the photo, she was wearing the blue dress. The one she'd bought for our anniversary last year, our 11th, but then claimed was too fancy to wear to the restaurant I'd booked. She'd worn a simple black dress instead, something she'd had for years. I remembered being slightly disappointed, but not saying anything. Now I understood. She'd been saving the blue dress for someone else. My hands were shaking as I called Mark. "Where are you right now?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady given that my world was crumbling. "Just left a showing 2 blocks from there." "Man, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if I should send it, but if it were me, I'd want to know." "You know?" "No, you did the right thing. Thank you. Just stay there for a minute. I'm coming." "You sure that's a good idea? Maybe you should just." "I need to see this myself, Mark. I need to know." I grabbed my jacket and keys, told my supervisor I had a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie, and headed for the elevator. My coworker Jessica asked if everything was okay, and I just nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The drive through the rain toward downtown felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. Windshield wipers beating back and forth, taillights blurring through the water on my windshield, the radio playing some pop song about love and trust that I immediately turned off. My mind was racing through every possible explanation. Maybe it really was just work. Maybe Mark had caught a weird angle, made it look more intimate than it was. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe there was a perfectly innocent reason for that dress, that laugh, that restaurant. But deep down, in that part of your gut that knows things before your brain wants to admit them, I already knew. The truth was sitting in that restaurant, laughing at something my wife's boss had said, wearing a dress that was supposed to be for me. I parked 3 blocks away from Canlis, in a garage that charged $20 for the first hour. The rain had let up slightly to a steady drizzle, the kind that soaks you slowly without you realizing it. I walked toward the restaurant, pulling my hood up, trying to look like just another person hurrying through the Seattle evening. Through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see them clearly now. The restaurant had that warm, amber lighting that makes everything look romantic and intimate. They'd moved from the booth Mark had photographed to a more secluded table near the back, partially hidden by a decorative divider, but still visible if you knew where to look. I positioned myself across the street, near a bus stop where I could watch without being obvious. A few other people waited there, checking their phones, shaking rain from their umbrellas, paying no attention to the man whose life was falling apart. Richard's hand was on the table, his fingers drumming lightly near his wine glass. As I watched, Linda reached across and placed her hand over his. Not a professional handshake. Not an accidental brush of fingers. A deliberate, intimate gesture. Her thumb stroked the back of his hand. Once. Twice. 3 times. He smiled and said something that made her laugh again. Then his other hand disappeared under the table. From my angle, I could see exactly where it went, landing on her knee, just above where the hem of her dress ended. She didn't pull away. She didn't look uncomfortable. She didn't glance around to see if anyone was watching. She smiled and took a sip of wine, her own hand still resting on his. I pulled out my phone and took several photos. My hands were steadier now. Something cold and focused had taken over, pushing aside the shock and hurt. I needed evidence. I needed proof. Not because I doubted what I was seeing, but because I knew Linda would try to deny it. She'd try to explain it away, to make me doubt my own eyes. I took photos of them holding hands. Of his hand on her knee. Of the way she leaned toward him when she talked. The way he looked at her, like she was the most fascinating person in the world. All the little things I'd stopped doing without realizing it. They ordered dessert. I could see the waiter bringing something elaborate and chocolate, probably that famous molten lava cake Canlis was known for. They shared it, Linda taking a bite from his fork at one point. That intimate, couple-like gesture that people do when they've moved beyond professional boundaries into something else entirely. I thought about texting her. Having a good dinner? Or how's the work stuff going? But I didn't. I just watched and documented. They finished their meal around 8:30, later than Linda's promised 9 p.m. return home. I watched as Richard signaled for the check. The waiter brought over the leather folder, and Richard immediately placed his credit card inside without even looking at the bill. Not split. Not Dutch. He paid for everything, a gesture that said this wasn't a business dinner where expenses would be reimbursed. This was a date. They stood up together, Richard helping Linda with her coat, a long camel-colored one I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She smoothed down her dress, checked her appearance in her phone's camera, fixed her hair. All the little primping gestures people make when they care how they look for someone. They walked toward the front entrance, and I quickly moved from the bus stop, following at a distance down the sidewalk. The rain had picked up again, and I was grateful for it. Gave me an excuse to keep my hood up, my face partially hidden. Instead of heading toward the main parking garage where Linda usually parked for downtown events, they turned left down a side street. A quieter street. A street that led away from the restaurants and shops, and toward the boutique hotels that Seattle's downtown was known for. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Part of me wanted to run up to them, to confront them right there on the street. But another part, the part that was thinking clearly despite everything, knew that would be a mistake. I needed to see where this was going. I needed to know the full extent of the betrayal. They walked for about 2 blocks, Richard's arm now openly around her waist. No more pretense of professional distance. In the shelter of the dark street and the rain, they could be what they really were. Then I saw it, the Alexis Hotel. A boutique place known for its discretion, its luxury, its small size that made it feel more exclusive than the larger chain hotels. The kind of place where the staff didn't ask questions, where guests could come and go without making a scene. They walked right up to the entrance. The doorman opened the door. Yes, they had a doorman, and Richard and Linda walked inside together like they belonged there. Like this was normal. Like they'd done it before. I stopped following about half a block away, standing in the rain outside a closed coffee shop, water running down my face. I didn't know if it was rain or tears anymore. I didn't need to see them check in. I didn't need to watch them get into an elevator. I'd seen enough. My wife had lied to me, dressed up for another man, let him touch her intimately in public, and was now walking into a hotel with him. The drive home was a blur. At home, I moved like I was on autopilot, my body going through motions while my mind tried to process what I'd just witnessed. The house felt different now, like I was seeing it for the first time. All the little touches Linda had added over the years, the throw pillows she'd insisted on, the pictures on the walls from our trips together, the coffee maker she'd bought because she liked a specific brand, all of it felt like evidence from a crime scene. Evidence of a life that had been real to me, but apparently wasn't real to her. I went straight to my home office and transferred all the photos from my phone to my laptop. Close-up shots of them holding hands. Wide shots showing the restaurant name clearly visible in the background. Images of them walking together down the street, his arm around her. The final shot of them entering the hotel, timestamp clearly displayed, 8:47 p.m. I printed 2 copies of each photo on our color printer, the same printer we'd bought together to print out family photos and holiday cards. The irony of using it for this purpose wasn't lost on me. While the printer worked, I sat at my desk and just stared at the wall, at the framed photo of Linda and me from our wedding day. We looked so young, so happy, so certain that we'd figured out something that other couples hadn't. What a joke that turned out to be. When the photos were printed, I spread them out on my desk and looked at them all together. This was my marriage. This was what 12 years of trust and loyalty had gotten me. A wife who could smile like that for someone else, who could lie with a heart emoji, who could walk into a hotel with another man while I sat at home waiting for her. Then I went into our bedroom, though calling it our bedroom already felt wrong, and started packing Linda's clothes into the suitcases we'd used for our honeymoon in Hawaii. That trip felt like it had happened to different people. The couple who'd walked on the beach at sunset, who'd laughed about getting sunburned, who'd made love with the windows open so they could hear the ocean. Those people didn't exist anymore. I packed methodically. Her work clothes first, the professional dresses and blazers she wore to the office. The blue dress wasn't there, of course, she was still wearing it. Then her casual clothes, her gym wear, her shoes. I didn't fold anything carefully. I just shoved it all in, not caring if it wrinkled. Her toiletries from the bathroom. Her jewelry from the dresser, except her wedding ring, which she was still wearing. That little detail made me angrier than almost anything else. She'd kept her ring on for her date with Richard. Like it meant nothing. Like our marriage was just a costume she could wear when convenient. I placed the suitcases by the front door, side by side. They looked sad and final sitting there waiting. Then I arranged the printed photos on the kitchen table in chronological order, creating a visual timeline of her betrayal. The restaurant, the hand-holding, the walking, the hotel. I placed them in a neat row so she'd see them the moment she walked into the kitchen. Finally, I sat down in the living room and waited. I turned off all the lights except for one lamp in the corner. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't look at my phone, just sat in the dim quiet of our house and waited for my wife to come home from her affair. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. 9 p.m. came and went, her promised return time. Then 9:30. Then 10 o'clock. Each passing minute was another lie, another betrayal, another piece of evidence that the woman I'd married had become someone I didn't recognize. I thought about our wedding vows. For better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. We'd written our own vows too, personal promises about honoring each other, choosing each other every day, being each other's safe place in the world. All words. Just words. They hadn't meant anything when tested against whatever excitement Richard offered. I wondered what they were doing right now. Were they talking? Laughing? Were they in bed together while I sat here in the dark? Did she think about me at all? Did she feel even a moment of guilt? Or was she so caught up in whatever fantasy she'd created that I'd ceased to exist? At 11:43 p.m., I remember the exact time because I looked at the clock when I heard her key in the lock. Linda came home. She jumped when she saw me sitting in the dark living room. "Alan! God, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" Her voice sounded normal, casual, like this was just another Thursday night. Like she'd just come from an actual work dinner, and not from a hotel room with her boss. I turned on the lamp beside me, letting the light fill the space between us. In the sudden brightness, I could see her more clearly now. Her hair was slightly disheveled despite obvious attempts to smooth it down. The blue dress was wrinkled in ways that sitting through a dinner wouldn't cause. And there was a smell, his cologne, I realized. She smelled like another man. "How was your harmless dinner?" I asked quietly, keeping my voice level. Something in my tone must have warned her. The casual expression on her face faltered. Her face went pale, color draining like water out of a bathtub. "It was fine. Just boring work talk. Richard wanted to discuss the new campaign we're launching next month. You know how he is about getting every detail perfect." "Richard," I repeated slowly, letting the name hang in the air. "That's his name? Funny, you've never mentioned a Richard before." "My boss. I've told you about him." She set down her purse slowly on the side table, her movements careful, controlled. "You said your boss's name was Mr. Novak. You always called him Mr. Novak. When did that change, Linda?" She swallowed hard. "I don't know, recently, I guess. The company's been trying to be more casual, less hierarchical. Everyone's using first names now. It's not a big deal." "Right. Not a big deal." I stood up slowly. "Come look at the kitchen table." I watched her walk toward the kitchen, her heels clicking on our hardwood floors, the floors we'd had refinished together 3 years ago, spending a weekend at her mother's while the smell dissipated. I heard the moment she saw the photos, a sharp intake of breath, then complete silence. The silence stretched out for maybe 30 seconds. Then I heard a sound like a sob being choked back. When she came back into the living room, her face was the color of paper. The carefully applied makeup stood out starkly against her pale skin. "Alan, please, it's not what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like." My voice was still calm, but I could feel rage building underneath, hot and acidic. "I was there, Linda. I watched you. I watched him put his hand on your knee under the table. I watched you hold his hand. I watched you feed each other dessert, like teenagers on a first date. And I watched you walk into the Alexis Hotel together at 8:47 p.m. Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. Nothing happened. The words came out in a desperate rush. "Don't lie to me anymore." My voice cracked, the calm facade breaking. She started crying, the ugly kind where mascara runs in black streaks and breathing becomes difficult and hitching. "Please, Alan, let me explain. It's been so hard lately. You've been working so much overtime with your project, and I've been under so much pressure at work. We barely see each other anymore. We barely talk. And Richard, he listened to me. He asked about my day, and actually cared about the answer. He made me feel seen again. I didn't mean for it to happen, it just. So this is my fault? The question came out sharp as a knife. I worked too much, trying to support us, by the way, so you decided to have an affair? That's your logic. No, that's not what I meant. I'm not blaming you. She wiped at her face, smearing mascara further. I'm trying to explain how it happened so gradually that I didn't realize what was happening until I was already in too deep. He would compliment my work, and we'd stay late together finishing presentations. Then it was lunches to discuss strategy. Then drinks after work. It felt good to be appreciated, to be valued. You haven't looked at me the way he looks at me in so long, Alan. How long? I interrupted, my voice cold again. She hesitated, and I could see her calculating, trying to figure out what I might already know. How long, Linda? Don't even think about lying to me. I can access our phone records. I can check credit card statements. I can find out the truth one way or another, so you might as well tell me now. 3 months, she whispered, looking at the floor. But nothing physical happened until tonight, I swear. It was just emotional until. Your suitcases are by the door. She stared at me, her tear-streaked face frozen in shock. What? I want you out tonight. Pack anything else you need, but I want you out of this house in the next 30 minutes. Go stay with your sister. She's always liked you more than she liked me anyway. We'll figure out the rest later, but I can't look at you right now. I can't be in the same room as you. Alan, please, you can't be serious. This is my home too. You can't just kick me out. Watch me. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling your sister right now to let her know you're coming. Unless you'd rather I call Richard? Maybe he'll let you stay at his place. Oh wait, his pregnant wife might have a problem with that. His wife is pregnant? Her face somehow went even paler. 3 months along. 3rd kid. But I'm sure that makes you feel really special, being the woman he cheated on his pregnant wife with. She collapsed onto the couch, her legs seeming to give out. Oh God, Alan, I didn't know. He never mentioned. Of course he didn't mention it. Men who cheat on their pregnant wives don't tend to advertise that fact to their mistresses. I started dialing her sister's number. Linda reached out toward me, pleading, "Please don't call Rebecca. Please. I can't face her right now. She'll never let me live this down. Then go to a hotel. You seem to like hotels. I'm sure the Alexis has rooms available." I finished dialing and put the phone to my ear. Alan? Rebecca? Hey, it's Alan. Sorry to call so late, but Linda's going to need to stay with you for a while. Yeah, tonight. I'll let her explain when she gets there. Thanks. I hung up and looked at my wife, though that word was already starting to feel wrong, like calling a stranger by a loved one's name. 30 minutes, Linda. Then I'm changing the locks. She gathered her things mechanically like a robot, moving between rooms collecting items she'd need. Her laptop, her work bag, some additional clothes I'd missed. She kept starting to say something, then stopping, then starting again. Finally, standing at the door with her suitcases, she tried one more time. Alan, I love you. I know I have a terrible way of showing it right now, but I do love you. This thing with Richard, it wasn't about not loving you. It was about, get out. Please. Get out of my house, Linda. Now. She left, dragging her suitcases through the rain that had started up again, crying so hard she could barely see where she was going. I watched from the doorway until she loaded everything into her car and drove away, her taillights disappearing down our street. Then I closed the door, locked it, and stood in the empty hallway of our house. Not our house anymore. My house. And despite everything, despite the anger and betrayal and hurt, what I felt most strongly was relief. Relief that I wouldn't have to wonder anymore. Relief that I wouldn't have to trust someone who didn't deserve it. Relief that I could finally stop pretending everything was fine. The hardest part was over. Now I just had to make sure there were consequences. After Linda left, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my laptop and started digging. Linda had left her iPad. We'd shared an Apple ID years ago. I logged in and watched her messages load. Hundreds of messages between Linda and Richard, going back 4 months, not 3. The messages started innocently, work stuff. But I could see the shift happening. Compliments that lingered too long. Late-night conversations about nothing work-related. By the 3rd month, it turned explicit. Photos Linda had sent in outfits I'd never seen, taken in our bedroom. Suggestive poses. But worse were the messages about me. Alan's so predictable. We barely talk anymore. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to a roommate. You make me feel alive again. Tonight he fell asleep during a movie again. Meanwhile, you texted asking how my day was. Each message was a small knife. But I kept reading, kept documenting. There were messages about where they'd meet. Lies she'd told me. A conversation about that blue dress. Won't your husband recognize it? Richard had texted. I told him it was too fancy for our anniversary. He believed me. He always believes me. That casual cruelty hurt the worst. Then I found tonight's messages. I've never felt this way before. Linda, 9:23 p.m. You're incredible, Richard. I don't want to go home. You don't have to. Stay. I think I'm falling in love with you. She loved him. This wasn't just an affair, it was a whole relationship. Friday morning came without me sleeping. I called in sick and spent 3 hours crafting 2 emails. The first went to HR at Linda's company. Professional, factual, devastating. I attached screenshots and photos showing the relationship, the restaurant, the hotel. The second was harder. I found Richard's wife, Catherine, on Facebook. Her profile showed 2 kids, posts about volunteering, recent pregnancy photos. Her latest post: can't believe we're at 30 weeks already. Baby boy number 2 coming this January. Richard and I feel so blessed. Red heart. I felt sick writing to her, but she deserved to know. I attached only the restaurant photos, enough to make the point without being cruel. Then I sat with my finger hovering over send for 10 minutes. This would have real consequences. Catherine was pregnant. Their kids would be affected. Careers would be damaged. But then I thought about Linda's message. He always believes me. I hit send on both emails. By Monday, Richard was suspended. Linda called from borrowed phones, leaving frantic voicemails. What did you do? Richard's been suspended. HR has photos, messages. This is going to ruin my career. Please call them back. I deleted the messages without listening fully. Tuesday, Patterson Pharmaceuticals HR director called me. Mr. Parker, Richard Novak has been terminated for violation of ethics policies. Your wife has been moved to a different department with a formal warning and 90-day performance improvement plan. By Wednesday, Richard's wife had filed for divorce. She'd found more evidence. Richard had done this before. Multiple times. Linda wasn't special. She was just the most recent. Thursday, Linda showed up at my house. I'd changed the locks. Alan, we need to talk about what happens next. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. She looked terrible, dark circles, messy ponytail, old sweatpants. We need to talk about the house, our finances. There is no us anymore. I filed for divorce this morning. Her face crumpled. After everything, you're just giving up. I'm not the one who gave up, Linda. You did that when you started texting Richard. I'm just making it official. It was a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake is forgetting milk. What you did was make deliberate choices over months. Those weren't mistakes. That was who you decided to be. I lost my career because of you. Richard's wife left him. You destroyed everything. I didn't destroy your career. You did when you slept with your married boss. I just made sure there were consequences. So you get to be the hero? I was faithful, Linda. And honest. That's apparently more than you could manage. She stood there for a long moment, and I could see her cycling through different emotions: anger, sadness, desperation. Finally, she settled on bitterness. You know what? Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get one. But don't act like you're some innocent victim in all this. You were barely present in our marriage for months. You treated me like a roommate, not a wife. Maybe if you'd actually paid attention to me, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere for. Get off my property, Linda. Your property? This is my house too. Not anymore. I told you, I filed this morning. My lawyer will contact yours about the property division, the assets, all of it. But right now you need to leave. I hate you, she said, and I could hear the truth of it in her voice. I hate you for doing this. For not fighting for us. For just giving up. Good, I said. Hate me. Be angry at me. Blame me for everything if it makes you feel better. But do it somewhere else. I closed the door and locked it. She stood outside for another few minutes. I could see her shadow through the frosted glass, and then finally left. The divorce took 4 months to finalize. Washington is a no-fault state, so Linda's affair didn't matter from a legal standpoint. Everything got split down the middle: assets, savings, retirement accounts. I kept the house because Linda didn't want it anymore. Too many memories, she'd told her lawyer. I took that to mean too much guilt. She moved to Portland in February for what she called a fresh start. Through mutual friends who somehow still talked to both of us, I heard bits and pieces about her new life. New job at a different pharmaceutical company, though not as senior a position. New apartment in the Pearl District. She'd cut her hair short, they said. Changed her look completely. The most interesting thing I heard was about Richard. Apparently, after his divorce was finalized and he'd spent a few weeks unemployed and feeling sorry for himself, he'd tried to contact Linda. Sent her flowers at her new job. Called her multiple times. Even drove down to Portland once to surprise her. She'd blocked him. Funny how the fantasy lost its appeal once it became reality, and cost her everything. Once there were no more sneaking around, no more forbidden excitement, no more illicit hotel rooms, just a disgraced middle-aged man who'd torpedoed his own life and wanted her to help him pick up the pieces. She'd finally seen him for what he really was, just another selfish person who'd chosen his own desires over his commitments. There were days I'd be fine, going about my routine, feeling almost normal. Then something would trigger a memory, a song on the radio, a restaurant we'd been to together, even just seeing couples holding hands on the street, and I'd be right back in that moment, watching Linda laugh with Richard through that restaurant window. But slowly, week by week, it got easier. I redecorated the house. Changed the bedroom furniture first. Couldn't stand sleeping in the same bed where Linda had taken those photos for Richard. Then the living room, the kitchen, gradually making the space feel like mine instead of ours. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the marriage. Joined a hiking group that met every Saturday morning for trails around the Cascade Mountains. Started going to the gym regularly instead of just occasionally. Took up cooking, actually cooking, not just heating things up, and found I enjoyed it. By spring, I was actually feeling good. Not just okay, but genuinely good. Like I'd shed a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I learned that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. That starting over is scary, but not as scary as staying in something that's slowly killing you. Most importantly, I learned that the end of something can be the beginning of something better. That you can survive betrayal and come out stronger. That happiness after heartbreak is possible if you're willing to do the work. Sometimes the hardest endings lead to the best new beginnings. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.